Hey everybody, welcome to the real United States. And today marks the 50th anniversary of the Woodstock Music Festival in New York. Now, no, I am not in front of the field that the festival was held in because, well, it's just a field. Now, I could have gotten the truck and driven 5 hours and sat in front of the actual field, which would have looked just like the field you see, and then done my thing and turned around and driven 5 hours back, and it would not have looked one iota different than sitting in front of hundreds of thousands of other fields across the United States. So I am actually doing this in southern Maryland, and there is a tie-in to that I'll get to in just a minute. Anyway, the Woodstock Festival was, well, actually it wasn't in Woodstock. It was just called Woodstock. It was supposed to be in Woodstock, New York, but they couldn't get the permitting. So it actually was in Bethel, New York, about 23 miles away from Woodstock. But you probably already know all that because you've had half a century to research it and learn about it, and maybe some of you were even there because there was about 400,000 people that eventually invaded Max Yasgur's, well, that's tough for me to say with the operator, Yasgur's dairy farm in Bethel, New York. Now, the Yasgur's farm was 600 acres, by the way. I thought that was an interesting little tidbit. So 400,000 people is a lot of people, but it's a big farm. I mean, there are 640 acres in a square mile. Okay, so except for maybe a little corner, the man owned like a square mile of property. It's a big farm, and I've seen pictures of the field. It's still just a field to this day. One of the owners have built a little monument, which I'll put on the screen right here now because it's a public domain picture. It's on the corner of the field where the crossroads are. But other than that, it's just a field. And so anyway, and then why am I doing this episode? Well, again, I'm trying to share with you all about the impact that these events of 1969 had on those of us in the United States who were maybe not participatory to it, but it still affected us. And Woodstock was the pivotal moment culturally in the 1960s for those of us who were youths. Boy, that's a tough word for me to say. Who were young folks during the 1960s. Now, this happened, well, just about exactly a week before my 10th birthday. So, you know, I'm coming of age, so to speak. I mean, I'm sentient. I'm aware of the world around me, and virtually every young person in America who couldn't be there wanted to be there. Now, my brother, who had just turned 18, certainly was one of those young people who, well, I'm sure wanted to be there at the time, or at least I remember him, you know, talking as though he would like to have been there. But there was just not the wherewithal. There was, you know, not the money to travel and accommodations, and of course there was not the consent of our parents, who, you know, were born before the invention of television, and I'm not making that up, that's true. You know, these were fuddy-duddies is the word I'm searching for. These were not people who, you know, thought that hippies and long hair and rock music was something that was cool. You know, they still were, you know, like Benny Goodman and Gene Krupa and those guys, you know, nothing against it. The big bands, they were great, they were fabulous, and I enjoyed them too, but, you know, it wasn't the music of my generation. So, everybody, it was like, you know, glued to any information about the concert. And so as it came out on the news, and, you know, the news was not as, you know, forgiving about the things going on as maybe they could have been. You know, it was all very negative, you know. The news establishment, of course, were, you know, middle-aged and older folks from reasonably well-to-do backgrounds, and again, hippie culture was not something that necessarily appealed to them. So the news stories of the day were not all that complimentary. Still, it looked fabulous. I mean, you wanted to be there, you know? You wanted to hear these great bands. This is once in a lifetime, not just once in a lifetime, but it's truly unique in the absolute sense of the word event. You wanted to be there. You wanted to hear it. You wanted to see it. And you wanted to be a party to it. Even if you couldn't be, it was a, something you daydreamed about. Now, maybe some of my more conservative classmates may disagree with me. They may think that it was a terrible thing, and it's they're proud to be an Okie from Muskogee, and that's fine. That doesn't make them wrong. But certainly in my realm of experience and the people that I knew at the time, it seemed like young people, this was, wow, this was the place to be. This was the place to be seen. Even if you couldn't go, it was a dream. And, of course, so much came out of that. There was a movie made, a documentary. Probably the most memorable thing for me, obviously, was the song written by Joni Mitchell, who also couldn't be there, incidentally. But she did write the song Woodstock about the events, and it was, of course, covered by Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, I believe. Crosby, Stills, and Nash, at any rate. And another group that slips my mind. Now, I have heard seen video, heard of her performing it. Just beautiful, beautiful. And such a pretty young woman. Just a very talented singer-songwriter. But that was, that stuck around for a couple of years after it. Now, they tried in 1970 then to repeat it, and it just didn't materialize. They couldn't get permitting or permission or this or that at all. And every, they've tried to have a decennial one, a 20-year one, a 25-year one, 30, 40, and 50. And it always seems to go to crap. And I had been planning for the last 2.5 years to go to the 50th anniversary celebration and concert of Woodstock. Well, problems arose, and were not overcome. They couldn't get, I think they couldn't get permitting for a mass gathering, and it was moved, and then they finally moved it to Southern Maryland. They had a venue here just outside of Columbia, Maryland, which is only about 10 or 15 miles from where I'm sitting at this moment. So I told you there was a tie-in to why the Maryland field. And the 50th anniversary celebration, they had pretty much everything set up, but again, problems ensued, and on July 31st, they had to cancel the 50th anniversary celebration of Woodstock. So at that point, I guess I figure it's pretty well a dead issue. I don't know if they're actually even having a little thing up there or not, but most of the acts that were supposed to originally appear, I think in Bethel, had scheduling problems such that they weren't able to come to Maryland. So many problems that they just finally, the promoters canceled the event. Which is why I say that, Woodstock was not just a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It was unique in existence. It doesn't seem like they will ever repeat the magic that was, that concert. Now, were there some problems? Sure, Again, I wasn't there, so I read the same, history articles about it that you all have. Maybe one of y'all or two of y'all out there were among the 400,000 people there, and, you want to leave me a comment, that'd be cool. Share a photo, that'd be even cooler. But, there were some problems, sure, But all in all, it was, just such a memorable event. And this was, the culmination of a decade. the whole 60s culture, of course, it was going to be the 70s. I mean, so the decade was winding down. The one that Kennedy had asked, you know, said, we're going to put a man on the moon before the end of this decade. Well, a few weeks earlier, we had done that, you know, even despite the fact that the man had been assassinated. We followed through. We did all these great things as a nation. And this was the, you know, the celebration of the end of the 1960s. And so for those of my classmates and me, the people that were born, you know, exactly the year I was born, it was a significant thing emotionally, personally. You know, like I said, it was 1 week before my birthday. Well, it was 1 week before my 10th birthday, okay? So I was born in 1959. I think most of you have figured that out by now. And so not only, I have no memory of the 50s. You know, I was, what, around for like, what, you know, 4 months, is that? You know, September, October, November, December, yeah. 4 months and a week, all right. I have no memory of the 50s. Everything I knew as a human being was the 1960s. You know, it had never been anything but 1960 something for my whole life. I had never been an age other than a single digit. Now, all of a sudden, it was coming together where I was going to be double digits, you know, which is, you know, with very few exceptions, is where you spend the rest of your life, unless you're one of the fortunate, very few who live to be 100 or 100 plus. Most of us, we spend our life in double digits. So turning 10 is a huge, huge thing. You know, more so than, say, 18 or 21, you know, the age of majority, wherever you are. 10 is a big deal. It certainly was to me. So it was going to be a different decade, which I never had experienced. What a decade was, you know. What is a 1970? I didn't, you know. and being double. So this was a time of just, I don't know, a lot of excitation, a lot of excitement for me personally as a human being here in the United States. And I think that, you know, everybody certainly that I went to school with who was of that same age, born in, you know, 59, would have felt similarly. Certainly for the folks who were at the concert, and many of those folks, many of them, were in their 20s. So it wasn't their, you know, first decennial change, but maybe their second, you know. They were maybe born in 1949 or, you know, 48 or so. You know, the true baby boomers were, you know, coming of age, and they had some disposable income, and they were out to have a good time at the end of the decade, which is, you know, I think usually a thing. I don't know. It's the end of this decade. I think we ought to have a big party, you know, on New Year's Eve this year. But it was quite a thing for those of us socially to talk about and to discuss and debate and whatnot, even as children who really didn't, you know, didn't get to go, didn't get to see much of it except through the news. It permeated all of society and culture at the time. Anyway, that is my historical memories of the Woodstock Music Festival, which is celebrating 50 years ago today, and the problems that they have had with getting a new venue. So perhaps we will never see another Woodstock type venue again, well, ever. So if you got to be there, folks, you're some of the fortunate few. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I love hearing from all of you. You got questions, comments, criticisms, suggestions, I'd love to hear them. If you're new here, hey, welcome aboard. I hope you'll consider picking subscribe to come along for the adventure, because we got lots more to show you. And as always, folks, well, thank you for watching.